All right, we're live. Hailing from the great cold state of Alaska, we are the Frozen Gamers Podcast. I am your host, Nathan Dugas. Joining me as a very special guest is a man whose secret identity is so secret that even he does not know what it is. Mr. Jeff Gordon of the Geeks with Wives Podcast. Jeff,
I'm glad to find out what my secret identity was. I've been wondering my whole life, searching for the answer, and I did not know that I was going to find it here. So this is a big deal. I'm excited.
So were you looking for a reason, roaming through the night, to find your place in this world?
Man, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, I mean, you can talk to my wife like every night. I ask her like, sweetheart, what's my secret identity? And she's like, I don't know. I don't even know what that is. So I'm glad to find it out tonight. This is great.
Well, I don't know what it is.
Well, maybe it'll unfold.
Maybe.
Over the next 4 hours. The next 4-hour podcast. It'll be a first.
Oh man, that would just be torture for everyone. There was one time where Scotty and I did a spoiler cast for Beyond Two Souls, and we talked for 2 hours with that. I mean, granted, we were going through basically like every big choice throughout the entire game from beginning to end. And then right after that, we did a normal podcast, which was a lot shorter because we were pretty much talked out by that point.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because, like all of the different decisions that you make affects how that game turns out. So I'm surprised it was just that long. I'm surprised it wasn't even longer.
Well, if it would have been if John had been here, but he couldn't make it, so it was basically just he and I talked about it, and he had talked to John previously, just kind of finding out what some of his decisions had been.
Yeah. Did you like Beyond Two Souls?
I liked it overall. I think in many ways, I think Heavy Rain's story was a bit better, but I mean it was still a very interesting game, and the big twist, which obviously I won't spoil here, that's what the spoiler cast was for, blew my mind. My jaw dropped, and I was,
Yeah, I heard somewhere that they were talking about remastering it.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me because I think so many people, it came out towards the end of the PlayStation 3's life cycle, and technically it's still alive, but I mean it's on its way out, and a lot of people probably were saving their dollars for a PS4 or whatever it was they're going to get next, so they probably missed out on it. Like me, I missed out on The Last of Us, so that comes out next week, and I've already pre-ordered it, and I'm going to play that. So I think that I would do the same thing. I think I would want to revisit Beyond and see what the whole hubbub was about that. Because some people really loved it, some people didn't like it. So I want to make up my own mind about that. Yeah. Well. Yeah. And then after I beat it, I'll listen to the spoiler cast and I'll see if I disagree.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. There's such a variety in what the decisions can really do for the story. It was really interesting hearing some of the decisions that my co-hosts made, just because their outcomes were completely different for certain sections than what I had.
Does it on Beyond, does it tell you like what decision most people made?
No.
Yeah.
It's not like with The Walking Dead.
Yeah. I love that about The Walking Dead, because I would make a decision that I was passionate about, and then I would see that like 60% of the people chose to do something different. I was like, what? Like in the first episode where you have the choice to save Duck or to save Herschel's son. Mm-hmm. And I chose to save Duck because he's a little kid. And then I made that decision, and then it gets to the end of the episode, and it was like, 60% of the people chose to not save Duck, and I was like, what? What are you people thinking? It's a kid, for crying out loud.
It could very well be they just assumed that Kenny would be able to save him. All right, but
yeah.
I mean, even still, I mean, with The Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us, I find myself oftentimes, well, actually, even with Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, oftentimes going back after I've made a decision, either to see what the different outcome might be from a different decision, or just being like, I didn't want that to happen, so I want to do this over. I'm kind of a perfectionist that way, but one of these times, like probably the next time I play through Heavy Rain and any of the other games, I'm going to go with my first choice, and if it, or I'm basically not going to redo anything. I'm going to just let things unfold naturally instead of basically cheating.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. Like, it's tough to not go back because I forget which episode in the first season it was of Walking Dead, but you go to, and this is a spoiler for anybody listening, but to be honest, like, the game's been out for over a year now. It's like, come on, you got to play this. So I'm just gonna let it out there. I think it's in the second episode. You go to some farm, and the farmers have like all of these supplies and all of this food, and it turns out that they've been like cooking people. They're like cannibals, and you have the choice to tell Clementine, who you're looking after. You have the choice to tell her, like, don't put that in your mouth. But I didn't make the right decision, and she started eating it, and she was disgusted by it later. And she even asks you a question. She's like, "Why didn't you tell me, like, to not put that in my mouth?" And so, like, I felt like really bad that she had eaten human flesh. So I had to go back and I replayed that entire episode just to change that one decision because I felt so bad about it. So
yeah. Well, anyway, we've obviously gone off on a little tangent here, but just getting into the same kind of questions that I ask every time we have a guest on the show. Some things that we want to hear about you as a gamer. First off, what systems have you owned both in the past, and what do you own currently?
Oh man, okay. So in the past, I started off with the NES. The Nintendo Entertainment System. That was my first video game memory is playing Duck Hunt. And actually, the NES just celebrated its 30th birthday last week, so that's pretty wild. I can't believe it, but I guess it makes sense when you think about it. But so after that, it was Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, and I loved both of those. I've never been like a hardcore one way or the other. I really enjoyed both experiences that I got on those consoles. After that, let's see, Virtual Boy. I owned a Virtual Boy. I still have neck cramps from playing it. If people are listening to this and they've never played the Virtual Boy before, like, you literally had to lean over and like tilt your face up in the air, and you had to hold your head that way, for the next, however long you played that game. And so I, like I said, I still have like phantom pains back there. So yeah, and then after that, let's see, the Game Boy Advance, PlayStation 2. Xbox 360, GameCube, and I did not get a PlayStation 3. So, and that wasn't because I didn't like, I don't like Sony, because I love Sony. It's just that I was going through college at the time, and I didn't have any money to spend on games, and I barely had any time to play games. So, it's funny, like, after I graduated college is when I, started going back through all of these games that had come out on the 360, and I just started playing them and trying to catch back up on everything that I missed. So that's why I love all of these remastered games, because I want to go back and I want to play these great, these great games that I heard so much about on PlayStation 3. And so, but right now I own, as far as consoles that I own right now, I have a Wii U, and I have the PlayStation 4, I have the Xbox One, I have the PlayStation Vita, and I have the 3DS. It's a big problem. It's a problem. It really is. My wife thinks that I'm crazy. She's like, "What are you doing with all of these gaming consoles? Do you even have the time to play all of them?" So, yeah, but I love it. I love video games. I want to experience it all. I don't want to miss out on anything. So,
Definitely.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, are your top 3 favorite games?
My top 3 favorite games. Okay. My favorite game of all time would, I feel like when I give out this list, there will be choices that everyone's like, yeah, okay, you got your generic, everyone's favorite game. But my favorite game of all time literally is Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Which I didn't mention, but I did own a 64. So, yeah, that game just changed everything for me. I remember, very clearly, just being, you start off in your little town, and I thought, oh, this is just like a little area that this game is going to take place in. And then you open up in the Hyrule Field, and I couldn't believe that somebody made a game this huge. It just blew my mind. So, and the amazing dungeons, the incredible story. In looking back, because I just recently played that game on the 3DS, and it's amazing how well it still stands up. It's still an incredible game. It's still worthy of going back and playing time and time again. So that is my number 1 of all time. My number 2 is Resident Evil 4 for the GameCube. That is another game that just blew my mind as far as, I just remember playing that game and really thinking, I've never played a game like this before. And it's kind of shaped how games are played now, as far as that behind-the-back perspective, that third-person perspective that they give you. And so, yeah, Resident Evil 4 is my second favorite. And I think my third favorite would probably have to be old school. It's Super Mario 3 is my third favorite of all time. So my top 3 came out on Nintendo consoles. I can't say enough great things about my Nintendo time. So yeah, those are my top 3.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm sure at some point, I'll be like, oh, you know what? I think I like this game more than Super Mario 3. Sometimes it changes, but that's what I kind of keep going back to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, and then the last question I have for you before we get into what we've been playing is, what is your current gaming addiction?
My current gaming addiction? Yeah, I think that the thing that I keep going back to is my Wii U. I can't get enough of it, and right now I play Mario Kart 8, and I can't get enough of that. And I'm playing Shovel Knight right now, and that I have all of these great consoles, like the Destiny beta is out there, and I've got Dead Rising 3 on my Xbox One. And, there's these great games that are out there, and yet the Wii U just keeps pulling me back, always. And so, yeah, I cannot get enough of it, and I'm really glad to see that a lot of people are starting to find out that the Wii U is a really good system, and it really is worth somebody's purchase. So that's what I'm addicted to right now. I'm addicted to my Wii U, Nathan. Can't get enough of it. So.
All right. Well then, apart from Mario Kart 8, what have you been playing recently?
So I have been playing Shovel Knight, and it's a blast. I'll tell you what. Like I said, I got started on the NES and Super Nintendo, and I always have a soft spot for games like that. And I really enjoy Shovel Knight because it definitely pulls a lot of influences from Mega Man and Castlevania, even Super Mario. It's got the overworld kind of like Super Mario 2 and Super Mario 3. I really enjoy how kind of how they pull things, from different old titles, and yet it still feels original. It doesn't feel like somebody just copied, all of these great titles and said, "Oh, this is our original title." It feels like Yacht Club, who's the developer for that title. It feels like something that was original, and it feels like something that I played. Like it feels like I'm going back and playing a legitimate old console game. And if you aren't familiar about Shovel Knight, it not only pulls from those gaming mechanics, but it actually looks like a Super Nintendo game or a Sega Genesis game. So that's what I'm playing right now. And I'm also playing, I mentioned it earlier, Dead Rising 3 for the Xbox One. I'm having a blast playing that. Last night I took a motorcycle and I combined it with the steamroller, and so my front wheel of my motorcycle is a giant, steamroller wheel, and I'm just like mowing zombies down, and I love that game because it doesn't take itself seriously one bit. Just another kind of glimpse into that game is that there is a all-you-can-eat buffet that has been locked up, and you break in there, and there's a woman that has just been like hoarding food, and she's in a like motorized wheelchair, and you have to fight her. And so you have this woman that's just like wheeling after you, taking you down. It's one of the most frightening things I've ever experienced in a video game, and yet one of the funniest things I've ever experienced in a video game. So yeah, that's what's been eating up my time. You get it eating up my time, Nathan?
I'm sorry, what was that? That last sentence.
Oh, I said it's been eating up my time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
like,
we just
like
repeated
zombies.
yourself. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That might actually end up being the title for this week's episode. Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, you're welcome. Anything. Anytime.
All right. Well, as far as what I've been playing this week, I decided to get back into Dragon Quest IX for Nintendo DS. It's one I got a few years back because I had heard a lot of good things about it in Nintendo Power. But I had gotten stuck at one point, and I just put it down and hadn't really come back to it in probably really a couple of years. But I decided to get back into it, and I am now at the point where I can go to the final dungeon and defeat the final bosses. But I need to level up a bit first, so I haven't quite finished it.
Oh, yeah.
There's two of you.
I have no idea what just happened.
I don't know either.
But I mean,
okay, whatever. It works.
Double the Jeff.
Yeah. Anyone not watching the video version, for some reason there's two separate icons of Jeff showing in the bottom of the screen. Oh, no, now it's done one. Okay, anyway.
I disposed of him. They'll never see him again. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
The internet, folks.
Yeah. So yeah, Dragon Quest IX. It's a pretty great game. The only thing that I really don't like about it is the fact that because of the fact that it's more multiplayer focused. Although you can have a party of up to 4 people, including the main protagonist, who's of course a silent protagonist, as expected. Because of the fact that you're basically just creating characters that, as opposed to actually getting characters with personalities and that sort of thing. These people, they don't have personalities. There's no story behind any of them, and so it kind of makes the story weaker than it would be otherwise. And I think that what I need to do is I need to track down some of the older Dragon Quest games that actually have a full story and check those out.
Yeah. I mean, so you've played these games in the past? Like, this isn't your first experience with it?
No, this is my first Dragon Quest, but as far as I know, the other ones are, more fully story focused and actually have, individual characters with personalities and dialogue and everything instead of just being empty shells. So
what inspired you to play it?
Well, it was mostly just the fact that I'd seen some stuff about it in Nintendo Power a number of years back, and from everything they were saying, it sounded like something that would be a lot of fun, and I was looking for a good JRPG to fill some time on my DS, since the only other one I had at the time I think was Final Fantasy IV, which that was one of the first games I got on DS, so I played through it already and wanted something new to play. My wife got it for me Christmas a few years back. So
interesting. I'll like I said, I haven't played Dragon Quest before, so I definitely look forward to hearing what your opinions are once you've continued to play it a little bit more. And
well, I mean, like I said, I mean, basically, I like a lot about it. It's very much a traditional JRPG, turn-based and everything.
Yeah.
It's just mostly the fact that because of the fact that it's intended to be more of a multiplayer kind of game, none of the characters have any sort of personality.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, it's just you're creating your own characters, or if you have other people with the game, you can, play together. Yeah. Which is, I mean, I think that could be really cool, like in the distant future when I have kids old enough to play, playing along with them. But when playing by myself, it just kind of makes the story a bit weaker than it could be otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Is there a DS or 3DS title, JRPG title that you kind of compare the other ones to? Like you're like it's.
Well, it's not. It's not so much that. It's just JRPGs in general. I mean, I've played most of the Final Fantasy games, and plenty of other JRPGs, and most of them have good story with good characters, and are more on the interesting side when it comes to the individual characters. Whereas this one, it's just there aren't any set characters apart from the main protagonist, and even he's a silent protagonist.
Yeah. Did you ever play Bravely Default?
That's one I still have not played. However, I did just download the demo today. So sometime in the near future, I'm hoping to check that out. And at some point, I do want to play that one. It's just I'm working on other games at the moment and waiting for like a really good sale.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I mean, when I hear you talk about JRPGs with stories and coincidentally being on the 3DS, like Bravely Default, like it fills all of those voids that I feel like don't get met a lot of times in JRPGs, especially like on a handheld. And so yeah, definitely when you get the time or when the sale comes around, just throw your money at Nintendo and Square Enix and just say, all right, I'll play it. It's really good.
Definitely. But I have been playing another game on my 3DS, which I just got on Friday. Adventure Time, Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage? It's from WayForward, who created the Shantae? Yes. I don't know how to pronounce that games. Anyway, they're best known for those games.
Yeah.
And this one is, it's the gameplay is entirely inspired by Zelda 2. Basically identical gameplay, except that you have a little bit more that you can do as far as attacks and stuff go because you have more buttons. But the big thing is that it's mostly the kind of game that if you're a fan of Adventure Time, you will love this game. And if you have never watched Adventure Time, even if you like Zelda 2, you may not enjoy it as much just because you won't quite get the humor, and since there's no real voice acting, you won't quite be able to imagine these characters saying it in their voices on the cartoon.
Yeah.
But I have to say, for those of you who have never watched Adventure Time, check it out. The first 2 seasons are up on Netflix, and it is fantastic. It's the kind of, it's one of those cartoons that you can, that it's appropriate for kids, but it's probably going to be a lot more funny to you as an adult than it is for kids, because you'll get more of the humor, and it's just, it is absolutely fantastic. I can't recommend it highly enough.
I've watched a little bit of it, and what I have watched of it, it is sufficiently hilarious. It is, and just odd at the same time.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
It's like Ren and Stimpy for a new generation.
Yeah, except Ren and Stimpy was a little more on the crass side.
That's true.
But because I do remember watching Ren and Stimpy back in the early '90s, and that was always, some of the stuff was just kind of disturbing.
Yes, rubber nipples. That's what I took away from it. And the log. Everyone wants a log. Sorry.
Anyway, the last game. Well, I guess there's really 2 other games I played. One I'll just touch on real briefly. I also downloaded the demo for Mario Golf World Tour today and played a little bit of that. And
nice.
I don't have a lot to say about it yet. I played through I did the tutorial and a few of the courses, and it looks like it's the kind of game that can be fun, but it's not one I'm going to rush to buy just because I have plenty of other games that I think are a bit better as single-player titles. And this one's more of a kind of like, okay, I'll play for a little bit, and I might be interested for a little bit. And if it has a download play feature, which I don't know if it does, then I can play with my wife, but otherwise I can't see myself playing it a ton.
Yeah, that's definitely a game that I want to get as well. I've heard great things about it.
Mm-hmm.
My Twitter feed was just like blowing up with Mario Golf, like for like a month there. So
mm-hmm.
I hope that the hype is still there, because when I do play it, it's such a online oriented game that I hope that the peoples are still playing, and I hope that they're not so good that they just dominate me.
Yeah,
you and I been working on the game.
Yeah, I still have never really been able to get into any sort of online gaming. I think it's just because I got so late into having any sort of systems that could do online gaming.
Yeah.
Because I only got a PS3 a few years ago, and by that point I had already missed out on a lot of that stuff. And I had a gaming PC about a year before that, but even then it was still I still have more of that traditional couch co-op mindset. It's just kind of, I don't know, it's just what I've always been used to. I've never really been able to do online. I've tried doing it a couple times, but every time I've tried, I get slaughtered, or I just find myself being like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. It's fun playing with people even if you get slaughtered, but it's not as much fun playing with people online who are just, completely take advantage of you because you're a noob.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Game.
Yeah, it's like that's what GoldenEye ruined me when it comes to first person shooters and playing online, because I will never have as much fun on playing, as much as I love Call of Duty, and as much as I'm looking forward to Advanced Warfare or like a game like Evolve. I know that I will never have as much fun as I did when I was playing on the 64 against my buddies on the couch, and just all the hilarious antics that went down. So
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that when you play it with your buddies, it can be a little bit more fun. But if I'm just walking in and like playing Destiny, the new beta for Destiny, like it wasn't fun until I started playing with other guys from Geeks with Wives, and that's when I started having a good time. But it was like before I was like, I really don't care about this. Like I feel lonely. I feel like I should be having a lot more fun. So I'm right there with you.
All right. The last thing I've been playing quite a bit of is another game that I got same time I got Adventure Time, and that's Infamous, the first one. I got the collection because it was only $20 on Amazon, and I've been wanting to give the original Infamous another shot. I'm glad I did. I've been having a lot of fun. I cleared the first district, and at this point, I played a little bit into the second one. Then I tried doing one of those escort missions and got pissed off because of some of the enemies. Just like while I was escorting these guys, some of the enemies appeared on the roof and started shooting at me, and I just said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take a break from this for a little bit, and I'll probably come back to it like within the next couple of days, but. I really do enjoy the first Infamous. It definitely feels like a Sucker Punch title because it reminds me a lot of Sly. At least some aspects of the gameplay remind me of Sly Cooper.
Yeah, and so you played the first one a little bit before, or is this like your first time?
Yeah, I had borrowed it from. John, one of my co-hosts, and I played a little bit. Not a ton. I barely got past like the first big mission because I was mostly just kind of messing around, kind of randomly throughout the city after finishing that first mission, and so I just decided when I got my own copy to just restart the entire game from scratch.
Yeah,
and definitely. I didn't really have to go back that far, so it wasn't a big deal. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a pretty awesome game. The controls, if you're like me and have a hard time aiming with a second joystick, it can be a little tough to get used to. But I'm getting better at that, and thankfully with this one, since you're not using bullets and you're not as limited on energy for using your basic lightning shots at enemies, it doesn't matter if you don't hit them perfectly. You're not wasting bullets, so it's a little bit more forgiving from that standpoint.
Definitely. Did you play Second Son?
I don't have a PS4, so I haven't yet. That's part of why I wanted to play through these games is because I want to play Second Son. Yeah. It does look really good, and undoubtedly when I actually get a PS4, Second Son will be one of the first games I buy.
Yeah, I liked it. It was really good, and Infamous is just one of those series that it really feels like you're playing a one-of-a-kind experience. I feel like, and it's got a great. I love the art style of it, and like you said, it's just awesome to have superpowers. Like I feel like when I think of what I would do if I had superpowers, or like what that would be like, I feel like Infamous, in a very small way, kind of encapsulates like what my experience would be like. Maybe I don't know. So I live vicariously, through that game. Maybe.
Yep.
I want superpowers so bad, Nathan. So bad.
All right. Well, so that just brings us into what we've been watching. So what kind of stuff have you been watching recently?
Well, let me tell you. AMC a couple weeks ago had the Dead, White, and Blue marathon of The Walking Dead, and we were maybe like a season and a half behind. And so my wife and I, we just have been like binge watching The Walking Dead.
Nice.
And oh my gosh, are you watching that show?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I caught up a couple months ago.
Yeah. My gosh, that last season is just absolutely crazy. Like
Yeah.
I I'm terrified of what's going to happen next season. Like I don't know. Like they've been like Rick and the gang have been through so much. I don't. It blows my mind like how the writers could think of, oh, we'll make it even worse for them. I'm like, how can you do that? Like, yeah, and and I won't spoil it for anybody because like it hasn't come out on Netflix yet. The most recent season. But yeah, there were some characters that died that I was very fond of, and it just broke my heart, and still getting over to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's basically what I have been watching for the most part is has been catching up on The Walking Dead. So I cannot say enough good things about that show. It is incredible, and it terrifies me because I'm like, I would not survive in a zombie
Oh yeah.
apocalypse. No, there's no way. There's no way. I may travel to the frozen tundra of Alaska. Maybe that's what I'll do. We'll freeze the zombies out in the winter.
Yeah, it would definitely work up in my area. At least most winters, but some winters maybe not as much.
Yeah.
Of course,
That's
most people around here have guns anyway, so
yeah.
have a little more defense from that standpoint.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm in Texas, so maybe
That's true.
I'm more protected than I think I am, but still. If there's something that Walking Dead has told me, it's that you don't have. It's not the zombies you should be afraid of. It's the people.
Mhm.
It's the living, breathing people. So that's where I'm like, I don't think I would survive because we all know how crazy people get when there's any kind of catastrophe or anything goes wrong. So as I watch The Walking Dead and I see that their biggest threats are real life, living, breathing people, I'm like, no, that's not gonna. It's unfortunate, but I'm just not gonna make it, and I pray to God that that it never happens. I don't think it will, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's where theology comes in.
yes,
It brings comfort if you're on a particular side, as we are.
that's true.
But anyway, that's pretty cool. Speaking of zombies, one movie that I watched pretty recently, which I actually forgot to mention last week, is World War Z.
Oh my gosh,
That
so
was
good.
it was good. It was a pretty nuts movie. I just I had rented the disc version from Netflix and was trying to watch it on my laptop because my wife wasn't really interested in watching it, and because my laptop has a Blu-ray drive, but the thing is that Blu-ray software support is so horrendous for PCs, well, for computers, period, just because it's not the standard format yet. And so trying to watch Blu-rays, I mean, unless you have the right software, sometimes it just doesn't cooperate. And so I ended up, thankfully, it was streaming on Netflix. Watch it that way. But yeah, it was a very interesting movie, and I like the take on things a bit more than others because at least there seemed to be some hope in it, whereas the rest of them sometimes they're just depressing. I mean, they're really, really good, really interesting, great storytelling, but they're so depressing, and it's like, man, it's a good thing I don't believe anything like this could ever happen.
Yeah, it is. It's great to know that it's all imaginary.
Yeah, but I'm sure some people will disagree with us on that, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion.
That's true.
But anyway, and then other stuff I've been watching. We watched one of the Mystery Science Theater things on Netflix, The Final Sacrifice, which is bad and hilarious. But Mystery Science Theater 3000 is always hilarious.
So they're still doing those.
Well, no, these are old ones.
Okay.
Technically, I mean, three guys who were doing it towards the end do something called riff tracks, which is basically they do MP3 versions of commentaries on modern movies, and you can download them, and then you can. They have a simple way of syncing it up so that you can play it along with modern movies, and it's a great thing to do even with movies you enjoy. But then it also makes movies like Twilight watchable because it's hilarious that way. But yeah, Mystery Science Theater 3000, lots of good ones on Netflix. That one, Final Sacrifice, was the one we watched, and that was very funny. We've also been watching a ton of Top Gear, the UK version. Are you even remotely familiar with what Top Gear is?
Top Gear. I've heard of it. What is it now?
It is basically a show where they talk about luxury cars for the most part. Occasionally they'll do reasonably priced cars, that the average person can actually afford, but most of the time it's luxury cars.
Okay.
The thing is that you don't have to be into cars to enjoy it, because we are not. But it is an absolutely hilarious show. I found that it really kind of filled the void after we finished Mythbusters, because there is a lot of kind of similar things, even though it's all focused on cars. They do testing of sorts, and just their humor. I can't even begin to describe how funny it is, but it is extremely good. And if you have, like me, seen all of the Mythbusters episodes that are available so far and want something funny to watch that's in a similar vein, Top Gear is exactly what you should be watching. And that's the UK version. From what I hear, the US version is not as good.
That's usually how it is, right? The UK version is always better.
I don't always agree with that, but this was one. I mean, it's just one of my co-hosts. Well, actually, both of my co-hosts, Scotty and John, had watched it and had been talking about it quite a bit. And just some of the things they were describing that go on in that show made me decide, okay, I'm going to check this out, see how I like it. And we ended up really loving it, and so we watch it all the time now.
Man, it sounds great. I want to watch it now. I want to.
And then also something that's kind of cool that happened recently is Snowpiercer, which is a movie that had limited release in theaters, but was released was in theaters pretty recently.
Yeah.
It's available streaming on demand through like Amazon Instant Video, iTunes, and a couple other places. It's $7 to rent, which is pretty high for a rental, but considering the fact that it hasn't even come out on home video, that's a pretty decent price. It's still cheaper than the price of movie tickets, and on top of that, watching it, you can pause as you need to. You can, eat whatever you want. You don't have to buy movie theater food, and but it was pretty excellent. I had heard good things about it from IGN, and I've been wanting to check it out, but none of the theaters here in Alaska were playing it, so I couldn't see it that way, and was really, really pleased to find out that it was available to stream.
Yeah.
And it's worth checking out. I mean, it does have some gore in it here and there, but compared to Walking Dead, it's really not that bad.
Yeah. So what's the synopsis for it?
Basically, it's set in a dystopian future in response to global warming. They use this chemical compound, basically fire off missiles that are supposed to essentially correct what global warming has done to the planet because of the significant issues that it caused by a certain point in the future. Instead, this compound that they've used ends up basically sending the entire world into a severe ice age, to where everything is frozen, and it's so cold that no one can survive outside for more than a few seconds. But there's this guy who had been, who saw, who believed, that this chemical compound, whatever, was going to cause problems. So he put time and money into building this massive, basically self-sustaining train, where the remaining Earth's population ends up living. After the world goes into this sort of ice age. And so it's kind of you have people in the very back who are the poorest and people in the front who are the richest. And it's sort of a class warfare, them trying to get to the front of the train and trying to change things because of the way that obviously the poor are treated very horribly.
Yeah.
But it has Chris Evans, who plays Captain America, and among many other roles. And yeah, it's really good, really worth checking out. It is rated R. There's a lot of language and some gore, but like I said, the gore doesn't even come close to Walking Dead levels, at least as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Chris Evans, he's got enough on his hands. He's defeating Red Skull, defeating aliens, defeating Hydra, and now he's got to clean up Al Gore's mess. Goodness.
Yeah.
Give him a break, guys. Give him a break.
Yeah. Other than that, we also watched Monuments Men, which I don't know if you saw previews for it. It's just basically about. It's based on true story, true events. Some guys during World War II going out to essentially rescue works of art.
Yeah.
From being destroyed and taken by Nazis and whatnot. Has Bill Murray and George Clooney and Matt Damon and John Goodman and a couple other people I can't quite remember. But anyway, a pretty all-star cast.
Yeah.
I had read some reviews where they kind of said that unfortunately it wasn't very good, and I still wanted to give the movie a chance for myself, but I really have to agree with those reviews that it just, you have all these great actors, but none of them really get a chance to shine. And the plot was interesting enough and everything. It's just, despite the fact that you have these, amazing actors all taking part in this movie, none of them just really had a chance to do anything worth noting. It wasn't a movie that was really that great.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, like I said, I like a lot of those actors a lot, and I was just disappointed. It was essentially what reviews had said. Yeah.
It's Ocean's 11 meets World War II. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, except not funny or as memorable as Ocean's.
Yeah. It's got Bill Murray in it, right?
Yeah.
How can you ruin a movie that's got Bill Murray in it? That blows my mind.
It doesn't make much sense to me either. He was one of the big ones that drew me in, but unfortunately, the funniest moments are the ones in the trailer, and apart from that, it's just not very good. It wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't. It wasn't a good movie.
Yeah, yeah. When you have all of those guys together, you expect greatness. So, yeah.
And the last couple things here, I watched a little bit of Mythbusters. I decided to restart it, but I actually bought the first 8 seasons because they were on sale through Discovery. That's really the only place you can get the DVDs, actual real copies, as opposed to the fake ones that you can get through sellers from China. But it just because Netflix, they only have the collections, which are all the episodes are out of order, and there's a bunch of them missing, and Amazon used to have all the episodes available to watch through instant video from every single season, but they stopped having those as Prime eligible, so you can't. Now you have to pay for them. So I looked into it. It was on sale, like over $100 off for the first 8 seasons. So I went ahead and got those, and it came in the mail today. But unfortunately, because of how backed up they weren't able to get out package slips. So we weren't able to get that. Or the other thing that I ordered, which I'm also pretty excited about, is the 6 X-Men movies, all on Blu-ray, which got like $54 for all 6 movies. There were cheaper ways to get all of them, but not with all the special features. So
there's 6 X-Men movies now?
Six, including the spin-offs, because there's the first 3 X-Men movies, then there was X-Men Origins Wolverine, then X-Men First Class, and then the Wolverine.
Oh, that's right. I guess that does make sense. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, not all of them are. Like particularly X-Men 3 and X-Men Origins are not the greatest, but I figured, if I'm gonna buy some of them, I might as well just buy all of them.
Yeah.
And that way, my wife and I are hoping to do a marathon of those over the week. If not on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, funny enough, X-Men 2, I think, it switches. Spider-Man 2 and X-Men 2, they switch off. It's like my favorite superhero movie. I love X-Men 2. So good.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've watched all of them, but...
Yeah. They're good. And then we forget about the first Wolverine movie. We just pretend like that didn't exist. And then the Wolverine is incredible.
That was very good.
It feels like it was pulled from the comic book, and I love that.
Yeah, and the thing that convinced me to buy those was actually I pre-ordered How to Train Your Dragon 2, and then I thought, well, X-Men Days of Future Past is one I've been wanting to see, but last time we went to go see movies in Anchorage, they weren't playing that one, and so I ended up pre-ordering that because I've heard nothing but good things about it. I'm sure I'm going to love it. And then I saw that the Wolverine was on sale, and from there I just decided, I'm going to see if I can get all the movies for a good price, and I was able to. So I pre-ordered 2 movies and bought 6.
Nice. I don't want to take it too far off topic, but I just, you're talking about, we're talking about the Wolverine and the X-Men, and the other day I was thinking to myself, how sad it is going to be when Hugh Jackman no longer plays that character.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in that world, but I know that it's approaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like who else could play that character? Like he is, when you think of Wolverine now, you think of Hugh Jackman, which is incredible because Wolverine is such an iconic character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course, then there's Patrick Stewart playing Professor Xavier, which long before they even made the X-Men movie, I thought, Patrick Stewart would be perfect to play Professor Xavier.
Yeah.
Because my parents had always, had been watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, and so I just, I saw him and I thought, he would be perfect as Professor Xavier, and surely enough, that's who they cast, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, they really nailed a lot of their casting choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right there with you.
Yeah, I've heard that Kelsey Grammer returns as Beast in Days of Future Past for at least for a brief scene or something, which I think is awesome because it's like first time I saw X-Men 3, I didn't realize that's who it was, and I think it wasn't. I guess it was a couple years later that I started getting into Frasier, and which now is my favorite television show. But
oh wow,
now knowing that he plays that role as Beast, it's like, oh, okay, I see it. And I mean, he did a great job, of course, because he's an excellent actor.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
sorry.
Like I said, we tend to talk quite a bit when it comes to what we've been playing and watching, but that's part of the beauty of podcasting and being the host is you can control exactly how much you let the talking go on. So.
You enjoy that power, my friend.
I do. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the news.
Awesome.
All right, if you need to get up for any reason, feel free to. That's me saying that is more intended to be a break for like a clear stopping the song in between then in the news. And if you're good, then we can probably just move on.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
All right.
I'm good.
All right, we're back, and so we're going to talk about some news today. First off, we're going to start off with news from Sony. The biggest thing here is that PS4 is topping top sales charts again for the 6th month in a row as of the end of June. They didn't give hard sales numbers, but we know that it's over 7 million units. Actually, I think they already went up to 8 million as of May, the end of May, something like that. But either way, PS4 is still doing great in terms of sale numbers, and it's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm not surprised. And I don't think that anybody would be surprised, because I think that as far as when you think of Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony definitely knew from the get-go what it was that they were going to do. You knew that they had a game plan, and they've executed it, and they've done a great job of working with third parties to get, exclusive content, or at least getting that content to the people that have bought a PS4. They're getting it to them first. And so, I mean, they've done a masterful job of executing what it is that they set out to do. And I mean, we've talked about it before on Geeks with Wives, but like every single time you see a Destiny ad, it's associated with PlayStation. And Destiny is like the biggest thing right now. Like, people are freaking out about it. And when it comes time for September, and a little over a month and a half, Sony's going to be right there, at the forefront of the conversation again. So they've done a great job of looking ahead and saying, okay, like, that's great. We have Infamous Second Son, but what are we going to be doing in 6 months? Oh, yeah, we're going to have Destiny. And then, I don't know what's going to come after that, but I don't know what 2015 is going to be like. But at this point, they've done a wonderful job of just setting things up so that they continue to build the hype of the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I mean, I've been impressed with how well the PS4 has done in terms of sales, especially considering the fact they really don't have a lot of AAA games that aren't multi-platform. I mean, it's like basically they have Second Son at this point. And, I mean, of course, next year they'll have the Order 1886, hopefully Uncharted, even though that would probably be late in the year. And, some multi-platform titles like Arkham Knight. But, it just seems like the library is kind of weak apart from the third-party stuff. Yeah. And I mean, third-party has always been one of the strengths of the PlayStation brand. But even still, I mean, I'm glad for them. I'm glad that it's doing a lot better than PS3 did in its first 7 months, because PS3 did terribly.
Yes.
Granted, that was also because of the $600 price tag, which was nuts. I do want to get a PS4, but I think I'm going to wait, just because, like, the games that I'm most interested in, I mean, there's Second Son is the only one that's available now that I really want to play, and I still want to play through the other Infamous games first.
Yeah.
And, to me, that's not a good reason to spend $400 on a system.
Yeah,
I mean,
I definitely agree. I definitely agree with that. Like, I have people that ask me, quite often, like, what do you feel like it's going to be worth it? And I think it's up to you, really. It's like up to your taste as a gamer. But yeah, I totally agree. Like, it's definitely not worth spending $400 on right now. and especially when you consider that games like Infamous, Second Son, even like Watch Dogs, if you're into that, like, you know, in a year maybe, or like a year and a half, like when you do get it, or, you know, when a person does get a PlayStation 4 for this first time, like they'll probably be like 350 to 300, and all of those games will either be bundled in that with it, or it'll be significantly cheaper.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think you're making the right decision there.
Yeah, I mean, I waited a long time on PS3, and it wasn't even because of the lack of games. It was just because I didn't want to spend, $300 to $400 depending on what time it was. And I'm glad I waited because one of my coworkers was selling his for $100, and it came with 3 games. I only kept one of them, and I mostly kept it because it's scratched up to the point where it's worthless. But still, for $100, it was a great deal. And I mean that gave me the opportunity to play some of the games I've been wanting to play, like Final Fantasy 13 and Red Dead Redemption. Speaking of which, just backing up for a quick second, have you played any more Final Fantasy 7 yet?
I have played a little bit more of it, and you're probably not going to like this, but I feel it's not that I don't like Final Fantasy VII. I'll preface by saying that I do like the game, but I feel as though there's a drop off from Final Fantasy VI, and maybe it's just because I grew up with that and I played it so much back in the day on the Super Nintendo, but I just recently went back and played Final Fantasy VI, just to kind of, because I think to myself, like, was it really as good as I thought it was at the time? And it was. Like, I really enjoyed it. So I feel like as a story and as far as, like, what they are trying to accomplish with the game, I feel like Squaresoft at the time did a much better job with Final Fantasy VI than they did 7. But once again, I really do like Final Fantasy VII, and I definitely see where the hype came from and why people do love it so much.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you. I mean, that's not to say I don't. I mean, 7 is an excellent game, and I played through it probably at least 3 times since the first time, and I think that was like my 2nd or 3rd Final Fantasy game, maybe my 4th. I can't remember. I know I started with 8, and then I went back and played 4 and 6. Hi, Sushi.
Oh. She disagrees.
He
disagrees.
He talks a lot. He's a very talkative cat. Oh, I know, it's because it's his dinner time. Well, he's just going to have to wait until his mom gets home. His mom. Anyway, back on topic. I enjoyed 7 a great deal, and I think it's still a very, very excellent game. But, I mean, 6 is easily significantly better than it, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, I basically rank it 6 for 12, and then it kind of goes... The 4th position switches back and forth between 7 and 8 quite a bit.
Okay.
And, I mean, I understand the reasons why people didn't like 8 as much, but most of the complaints, I think, are just more issue. I mean, it's a personal preference thing, and I mean, 8 was my first Final Fantasy, but I also I really love the story and other things. But anyway, getting back to the original thing, which was talking news. So yeah, PS4 sales doing excellent. I hope it continues to do well, and I'm looking forward to getting one eventually. Hopefully being able to take advantage of remote play a bit, especially with Second Son, which I think is one game that would actually work really well with remote play if the functions of R2 and L2 are anything like they are in the first game, where it's simple enough to where they could easily just put it to the rear touchpad. But yeah, so next thing I have under Sony news is I had talked in the past about how with E3, Vita seemed to really not get a whole lot of love, and it really seems like Sony's kind of backed off on actually trying to do AAA titles. They're more focusing on remote play and remote play with PS4 and PlayStation Now than they are on actually putting more first-party games on there. And even though there are a lot of great games on the Vita, I've been disappointed at the fact that they really just seem to be backing off in terms of doing actual AAA Vita exclusive titles. And I want to see more of those, because games like Uncharted were excellent and really showed the graphical potential of the system. And I was talking about this a bit on Twitter with some folks in response to a Geeks with Wives thing, and I do love the system. I want to see more of the AAA titles that really show graphically what the Vita can do. But anyway, basically, Sony is kind of in some interviews. A guy from Sony has basically said that it's kind of uncertain what the Vita's future is as far as AAA titles, at least in North America and Europe. And they've also said that first-party titles are going to be pretty limited as far as what they're actually putting out. I'm hoping that they are still working on some bigger games, like ones that they had already started that they just haven't announced, like hopefully an Infamous for Vita, crossing fingers. But I also recognize that might not ever happen, and I'm not going to get my hopes up too much.
Yeah. No, I definitely been disappointed in hearing the news that, and I think it was Shuhei Yoshida that said that if you want AAA titles, like, they're going to be geared more towards Japanese audiences and may not even make their way over here to the States. And I just recently bought a Vita, just maybe like 2.5 months ago, and I heard a lot of great things about it. And I have been disappointed in part because I just bought it, and I hear like a company say, "Oh, we're not going to really support it as much." Or strictly as a handheld gaming device. But I understand at the same time why they're doing that, because Sony is venturing into this, this kind of landscape where they're trying to support several different devices. They're trying to leverage the success of the PlayStation brand, specifically the PlayStation 4, to kind of boost the popularity of things like the Vita, and then you'll have the PlayStation TV that comes out this fall. And so it looks like they're trying to allow everything to kind of revolve around the PlayStation 4. And I understand that, and so that's why I'm as disappointed as I am. I'm going to give Sony the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, like, maybe you will increase the value of my Vita if it allows me to, play all of these PlayStation 3 games through PlayStation Now, and to be able to stream those games. And if you make the remote play function or the second screen function more worth my while, I guess you could say, as far as when you use it with the PlayStation 4. So, as frustrated as I am, because I see the capabilities and the potential that the Vita has, and I think a lot of people do. I mean, it's hard not to, especially, well, like you said, when you've played a game like Uncharted. And but, with that being said, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully they can say, hopefully a year or two from now, I can say, okay, that was the right thing to do. It works better as what they're using it as now. So, but it's hard not to be skeptical, though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the main thing, like, for me, PlayStation Now, honestly, I kind of look at it as a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
I think I would probably be a lot more excited about it if they said that PlayStation 3 games you own already on PlayStation 3 you can stream without any extra cost.
Yeah.
Or stream from your PS3, so that it basically just ends up being remote play. Because then I could play some of the games that I really love on my Vita, but the problem is that that's, as far as I can tell, that's not the case. It's basically you're renting individual games, and while there are some games that be like, okay, I wouldn't mind trying it out this way. At the same time, I'm kind of more along the lines of, if I really want to play this game, I can buy a hard copy, probably for cheap, and play it on my PS3.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll just see what happens. I'm really hoping that Sony has some things waiting in the wings that they just haven't talked about yet, or
Yeah.
I'm hoping for some big announcements in regards to Vita and some first-party titles, or even some great third-party ones. There just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of promising stuff on the horizon as of this point.
Yeah, and you talk about PlayStation Now. I actually got a little bit of hands-on time with it, and it works well. Like, I didn't have any problems with it as far as I didn't have a whole lot of latency or lag issues. But yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to just rent a game one time. Like, they're probably going to have to set up some type of subscription to where it's like Netflix, where you pay monthly or you pay for a year's worth of service, and you can just stream as many games as you want to. That seems more likely, because I read a story where Final Fantasy 13, like, it costs more to rent it in the beta version of PlayStation Now than it is to actually buy the game at like GameStop or on Amazon. So
actually, it was actually on PSN. It was cheaper to buy the game than it was to rent it for 90 days.
Yeah. That's why it's a beta.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, the other issue is connection speed. I mean, I'm sure that down in your area, connection speed isn't as much of an issue, but up here, especially in my area, it's pretty expensive. I mean, it's gone down in price recently, but it's still expensive enough to where, I mean, I don't have the minimum connection speed that I need in order to use PlayStation Now according to what they say you should have. And I'm more interested in the idea of streaming the games I already own, as opposed to streaming a game from a remote server. Especially because if there's a latency issue, which you said it's not too bad, which is great, but if there's a latency issue, it could just cause problems. So
yeah, and I mean the service that the company they bought in order to do PlayStation Now was Gaikai, and they spent like $380 million. So it's a investment that really needs to pay off for them.
Definitely. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, once again we got a bit off topic. Sony quietly announced. I mean, it's really shocking how long they waited to say anything about this, but that the Ratchet and Clank collection is coming to Vita tomorrow. But it's only as of right now, it appears that it's only digital. That's a collection I've been wanting to try out on Vita, because I have it on PS3, but I just don't spend enough time playing console. And I really think that, especially after playing Sly Cooper on Vita, that Ratchet and Clank would really benefit from that treatment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they have retail copies over in Europe, but as of right now, it doesn't look like they're going to have that here in the U.S. And if they haven't told retailers, which is kind of dumb. I'm really debating about whether or not I want to go for it, because the big issue I have is my Vita memory card, even with the second largest card you can get, just doesn't really have enough room for 3 more games like that. I mean, I don't know exactly how big they'll be as far as download goes. I guess it probably won't be humongous, since they are just HD upreses of PS2 games, but even so, I would rather have a retail copy. And if it was like with Sly Cooper, where you have the first 2 games on the cartridge and then the third one you download, it's like, yeah, I could fit another game on my Vita, no problem. And if I have to delete something, I can delete something. But I don't know. I do want to play those games, and I'm sure at some point I'll end up getting them on Vita. But if they don't have at least cross save, then it's going to make it a lot harder for me to consider buying it, because I have made some progress in the first Ratchet and Clank, and I'd like to continue from where I left off instead of having to redo everything.
So. Yeah, well, I'm definitely intrigued. I want to get it for sure. Yeah, but I too suffer from the same fate of the memory card just not being able to hold everything, and there's nothing sadder than having to get rid of all of this, time that you put into a game and having to delete it all.
You don't have to do that. I mean, if you have PlayStation Plus, which I'm assuming you do, since you have PS4, then it backs up your save data through them, which is great. I'm not really worried about that. It's just more like, okay, well, if I have to delete a couple of games, I can delete some of the PlayStation Plus ones that I haven't really gotten into and just come back to those when I actually want to play them. But even so, it's just, I still like having retail copies a lot more than having digital downloads, and the only reason why I go digital at all is because a lot of times it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to taking up space on the Vita, if I can cut out some, have additional space by buying a game retail instead of having digital, then that's what I'm going to do.
We're living in the digital age, my friend. We gotta embrace the times, I guess.
Well, hey, if Sony would start selling that 64 gig Vita card in the States, and instead of having to import it for $100 or more, sell it for a good price anyway, then I'd probably be willing to just upgrade, get a bigger card. But
yeah,
they're just insanely priced. So. All right.
Get with the program, Sony.
Yeah. Last thing I have under Sony news is that both Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, franchises that, of course, began on PlayStation 1 and since have not actually been really at all on the PlayStation brand, apart from some of the Activision-developed games going back to 2008. There is still the potential that that one or both franchises could definitely return to PlayStation. I think that's very cool for people who played those games. When I actually got a PlayStation back in the day, it was mostly a Final Fantasy and RPG machine for me. So I don't have the fond memories of those, but I would be happy to play those games, to try them out at some point.
Yeah.
Especially if they brought new ones to PS4, Vita, whatever else.
Yeah, I think it's time that those characters get some love, besides, Spyro being in Skylanders.
Yeah.
He deserves more. That lovely purple dragon. Which one would you rather see done? Which would you rather play?
I'd say probably Crash.
Crash.
I mean, it seems like there's a lot more fond memories from people that I've heard in regards to Crash Bandicoot than there is as far as Spyro goes, even though I know a lot of people love the original games in that franchise as well.
Well, I'm right there with you. I would much rather play Crash, and it only seems fitting, right, after Naughty Dog, started those games, and now they've, I don't think I would want Naughty Dog to work on another Crash.
No.
Just because of the great stories that they can tell.
Yeah.
But I think it is fitting that it kind of comes, a full 360 and, brings back this great, lovable character and title that so many people fell in love with when they first played the PlayStation.
Yep.
Like myself. Tear streams down my cheek.
All right, so let's move on into Microsoft news, and we have just a couple things to cover here. First off is that they've improved support for demos on Xbox One, following the same pattern that they have done previously for 360. Now it's, instead of being just short demos, it is a trial length game. I mean, a game that you can play only for a certain amount of time, but you're basically downloading the whole game, and you have the option, if you want, to unlock the full game. So basically, you just continue on from where you left off instead of playing a demo that's completely a mix of elements, as we saw back in the PlayStation 1 era. That was always so bizarre. But anyway, so it's a cool thing. I mean, of course, I've never owned any of the Microsoft consoles, so I'm not as familiar with this sort of thing. But I have seen it on PC, at least, doing the same kind of thing, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm still hopeful that they will bring back Knights of the Old Republic back and play it on my Xbox One.
Oh yeah,
that's what I want.
Yeah, I would love to see a Knights of the Old Republic 3. Of course, I still haven't finished the second one. I think I just got stuck at some point. But I love the first one.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You have to. If you love video games, you have to love Knights of the Old Republic. You have to love KOTOR. Or you cannot be my friend. I threw it down.
All right. Next thing here is a recent update to Xbox One. Actually, I'm not sure if it's already out or if it's coming out soon, but either way, update 1408. It comes out, it says next week, but of course I didn't check the date on the article. For early access users, and includes long-awaited 3D Blu-ray playback for those who have 3D Blu-rays and 3D TV, obviously. Also gives the ability to remotely download games and apps purchased through Xbox.com and SmartGlass, but only when your console is set up to automatically turn on. I think that's fantastic, particularly the ability to remotely download games and everything. That's something that I have appreciated about PlayStation, even though I think their store is unnecessarily complicated and absolutely terrible.
Yeah. It's a problem that needs to be solved.
It's like, it doesn't matter what version I go to. It doesn't matter if I do it on PC or if I do it on PSN or PS3 or if I do it on Vita, though I think Vita is probably the worst of the three. It's so difficult to find things on there. I mean, I love the deals that they have, even though they need to pick a set time of day that they're going to do it each time. They're going to have discounts or whatever instead of it just being kind of random. But I hate their store.
Well, I have to say, as far as, I own an Xbox One, and I've got to say, I do like how they've got everything arranged. However, if you do not have a Kinect, it's really difficult to navigate around that. So I hope that further, I'm glad that they continue to update these things, because, I mean, it's never perfect when you first start off with the console. They continue to improve the dashboard and how the console functions and how the store functions. But yeah, it's definitely designed for you to be able to say Xbox, find games, and it takes you there. But if you don't have that, if you don't have the Kinect, then you have to search through all of this cluttered mess to be able to find it. So hopefully this update kind of clears some of that up.
Definitely. All right, and then the last thing I have under Microsoft news, which we'll kind of just more touch on briefly, even though it is kind of a big thing, is that they're going to be laying off 18,000 employees. in over the next year or so, is what I believe it said. A lot of it is, for one, the Xbox TV division has basically been disbanded or is going to be soon disbanded, and the Nokia division, I believe, it's just something different. But I don't have a lot to say about that. I mean, layoffs always suck when companies do that, and but the good thing is at least it seems that they're doing a little bit more of advance notice to the employees they're going to be laying off, instead of being like, oh, guess what, today you don't have a job anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of that is the fact that so many of the devices that Microsoft makes are just failing, whether it's phones or tablets. And even Windows hasn't been as well received, the latest version of Windows. So they've definitely had some, they've had a tough time with a lot of their divisions, and hopefully, I wish the best for all of those people. That's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, but Microsoft is also huge. I mean, that's not to make light of what's going on. I mean, it sucks that people are losing their jobs. And obviously we hope for everyone who is a member of Microsoft and is losing their job that they'll be able to find something else with another company and get back on their feet. And jobs are not easy to find these days. The economy is bad, but hopefully something will work out for all of them, all the people affected.
Yeah, best wishes.
All right, so then that brings us to Nintendo news, and there's really not much of anything to talk about here, but we'll just mention a couple things. First of all, Fatal Frame, which is a series that I believe began on GameCube, where basically you are a person who goes into some mansion in the Japanese countryside with a special camera that allows you to take pictures of ghosts. Supposed to be a pretty terrifying game.
It looks terrifying.
It's coming to Wii U, and I didn't catch when it's actually being released, but I think it's next year. Pretty sure is what they said.
Is it coming to the US of A, or is it just going to be?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think so, because they talked about it a bit through IGN, but I'm not entirely certain. I didn't look into it a ton, more just because it's something I know I definitely will not buy, because horror games are just not my thing. But
yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, I do not blame you whatsoever. I tried that game Outlast. I don't want to go off topic too much, but yeah, like Outlast was the last scary game that I played, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do that anymore.
Yeah.
I think I'm past that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels of scariness. I mean, there's the kind of games like BioShock, for example, where when you first get into it, or Half-Life 2, especially when you go to Ravenholm, it can be pretty terrifying, but it's more just kind of getting that mental attitude of getting past it. And I mean, that's what worked for me with both Half-Life 2, with Ravenholm, and even more so with BioShock, which, I mean, the first time that I saw someone playing that, it's like I heard the creepy voice of the splicer, and I was like, I do not want to even touch this game. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to give the demo a shot on PC, and I played, like, just barely getting into the first area and heard the creepy spider splicer's voice, and was like, okay, I can't do this. This is just... Of course, it was also late at night, like really late at night, so that caused some issues for me. But I finally decided, when there was a good sale last year on the three BioShock games for $20, I decided, okay, you know what? If I can get past the headcrab zombies and all the Ravenholm stuff from Half-Life 2, I can mentally get past this on BioShock. And not only did I get past it, but I ended up loving the game, and I played all three of them basically back to back. I mean, I played the first one, in 1 week, and then I played Infinite the second week, and then I played 2 the third week.
Wow.
And I mean, they're excellent games, and now I'm not creeped out at all by any of the splicers or anything.
Oh yeah. At least in Bioshock, they give you a weapon, but in a game like Fatal Frame, all you have is a camera.
Yeah.
A camera.
And Outlast, I could never play Outlast. It's like, no way. No, thank you.
Outlast is the thing that I didn't like about Outlast is that it can be scary without having to resort to just like crazy amounts of gore, and there are so many times where it just seems like they went for the cheap scare, or just like the cheap like kind of shock value of like, here's a decapitated head, or something like that, and it's like that doesn't really scare me. What scares me is this giant man running around this place that I cannot kill, and I like the only way I can avoid him is to hide from him. Very much like Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. And so, but come on. I hope Fatal Frame gives me something more than a camera. I'm going to need something more than that.
Yeah.
Or else, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of going off topic, but also, thinking of games that used to scare me. PS1 era, Parasite Eve. I mean, by at the time I played it, I think it was maybe a couple years before the PS2 came out, and so graphically, it's, obviously today it's extremely dated, even and it was somewhat dated, but man, that game creeped me out. And I mean, especially because a couple times for some stupid reason I decided to play him at night, and
rookie mistake.
The thing is that I did really enjoy that game when I got past some of it, but it was just, I mean, it's funny to me, how something like that, it used to be so creepy, and now I could look at it and it's like, okay, this isn't scary at all, just because of how dated the visuals are.
Oh yeah.
It's like watching old horror movies, things that would have been scary back in the day, but you look at them now and they just seem so cheesy because of the visual effects. And yeah.
Oh yeah, and I have the same experience kind of with the first Resident Evil, where when you first enter into that corridor and you see the zombie munching on your former comrade, I remember just like being like freaked out by that, and now I look on it with a nostalgic feeling. So I don't know what to say about that. I don't know if I should feel good or bad about that.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Okay. Well, that's all we have. Oh no, I guess there was one other thing with Nintendo, and that's just the Club Nintendo rewards have been revealed for this year and for Gold and Platinum members. And unlike previous years, there's actually no physical rewards. Nothing that you can get and hold in your hands. Now it's all just digital things, primarily virtual console games for those who are Gold members. In fact, I think that's all it is just virtual console games if you're a Gold member. And then if you are a Platinum member, you also have a few eShop exclusives, and as well as Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D on 3DS. I mean, my personal thoughts about this, I mean, I always thought that some of the physical stuff was cool, but I have yet to get up to Platinum status, so I haven't been able to take advantage of any of the really great things. I kind of wish the Gold rewards were better, because honestly there's not a single game in there that I actually want to get, because a lot of them I already have on Virtual Console on 3DS. And then with a game like Kid Icarus, if I use 200 of the coins I've earned through Club Nintendo, I can get the 3D Classics version, which I would much rather have.
Yeah. I downloaded just last week. I downloaded the first Metroid for the NES on my 3DS. So, but yeah, I agree. There really wasn't anything that stood out to me as as a goal, I'm the same place as you are, where I haven't reached platinum yet. I'm not platinum, sorry guys, and I guess I'm just not that cool yet. But I got to work on my Nintendo cred. But yeah, as a person that is just strictly gold, I didn't really see anything. It was too crazy, but that just stood out to me. But it's hard for me to say no to Metroid. So
yeah,
I just went with what I knew was going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I have Metroid both. I mean, I got it as an ambassador with 3DS, so I have it that way, and then I also have the original NES version on the actual cartridge. So, to me, it's like, okay, I own this game twice already, so I don't really need to buy it again, or I mean, I don't even need to take it again. It's just
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll look at it some more and see if there's anything that I might want to get. I think that there was like Wario Land 2 was one of the games. Let's see here, what was it? Yeah, Wario Land 2 on 3DS. Yeah. So I might go for something like that, but the rest of those I either have or I just don't have an interest in.
Yeah. So. And I don't, there's a common theme tonight. I don't want to go off topic too much, but I feel like something that Nintendo does that doesn't get enough appreciation is their deluxe digital promotion.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that, where if you buy games digitally, you get certain amount of points, and once you get a certain amount of points, it turns into actual credit on the eShop that you can use. So that's how I ended up getting Shovel Knight, is that I had $10 of credit through the deluxe digital promotion, and I was able to get that. So
yeah, I don't buy games digitally typically. I mean, like the only ones I bought a few virtual console games on Wii U. I got Super Metroid, but that was only 30 cents when I got it.
Yeah.
And I got Earthbound and I think I might have bought F-Zero as well, but that was also one of the 30-cent games.
Mm-hmm.
And then apart from that, the only bigger game that I bought was Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. It's just basically been, I haven't bought a whole lot of things because I prefer to have the discs anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have Pikmin 3, but that was one I got as a freebie for Mario Kart 8. So.
Yeah. Which that also counts towards the deluxe digital promotion.
It doesn't.
Well. It doesn't? I thought it did.
I did not get a single. I didn't get any credit on my account after I downloaded that.
Really? Something's got to be wrong. You need to talk to Nintendo.
Yeah, maybe I do. I'll check with them on that. I mean, I don't remember ever getting credit for any of the games I bought digitally, so I'll have to check on that. But it is, I don't know. Anyway, but if I am able to get enough credit, then I'll probably buy like SteamWorld Dig or Shovel Knight on 3DS, because those are two that I want to play on there. So. Okay, so then lastly we have our general news. General gaming news.
Sorry, all right, you got it that time.
First off, Mass Effect 4. BioWare has actually put out basically a survey to get feedback on the Mass Effect series to help them figure out how exactly they want to make the next game. And it's not a long survey. Doesn't take long at all to fill it out. I think it took me like 5-10 minutes at the most, and is worth doing if you care about the series. There's not really much else to say about that.
I'm surprised that they're doing that after the experience that they had with Mass Effect 3, where, like, I don't know if I'm so much surprised, but I guess I find it admirable after they've got so much backlash from fans of the series that they're going back to the fans and saying, okay, what do you want us to do for the fourth one? So,
well, I mean, they're not like going into detail. They're just kind of asking, okay, what were the things that you liked about these games? what were some of the things you didn't like about the games,
Okay.
and then saying, what are some things that you'd like to see in the new Mass Effect. And I mean, for me, like the big thing that I want to see in the new Mass Effect is I'd really like to see them, the gravity of the choices that you made in the end of Mass Effect 3 actually affect the way things go. I mean, even because I imagine that they could probably, I mean, even though it would have to be a very expansive thing, they could make it so that it's tailored based on, which of the 4 different endings you chose. For those who actually played the extended cut of the ending of Mass Effect 3.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, I also think it would be great if they actually just chose a canonical ending from Mass Effect 3 and worked with that. But I imagine that they probably would try to figure in the decisions for those of us who actually played through the trilogy, so that if someone decided that they wanted to control the Reapers as opposed to destroying them or synthesizing with them or just do nothing, then you get a different kind of a different direction for the game, and I think that can make a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, it blows my mind to think like where are they going to take it next? Like, are they going to go like post Mass Effect 3, or is it going to be a prequel? Like,
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I feel like so much is like if you read, the codex and stuff like that, like they tell you everything that's happened. So, it's like
your choices will mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so it's like they kind of have to do post Mass Effect 3, but at the same time, like, man, that's a lot of stuff to take into account as far as the endings are concerned. But my goodness, if anybody can do it, BioWare can do it, and they'll be working with, advanced tech and hardware to, be able to support all of that stuff. So they can do it. I have confidence.
Yeah, I just hope that my PC can still run Mass Effect 4, because I mean, even if I have to run it on lower settings, because I can max out all 3 of the other Mass Effect games. I mean, completely, but I don't think I could play it on a console. I need to have the mouse, as I just can't aim without a mouse. At least not well enough to where I mean, it would just distract too much, and especially because I'm very much a sniper, and I go for the headshots as much as possible. And that's just very difficult to do with a joystick versus a mouse. So
I understand.
But yeah. Plus, then they could have an actual transfer your save over feature, whereas it might be a little bit harder to do. Different generations of console.
Yeah. I'm definitely wondering how they're going to work that in. But once again, if anybody can do it, BioWare can do it.
Yep. All right, so the last piece of news I have here is that The Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 4 is going to be available tomorrow. That's Tuesday, the 22nd of July. For those of you who actually wait for just the audio version with the music and everything, it will already be out by the time you hear this podcast. But I'm excited about that. I hope that it won't take too long to get episode 5 out as well, since Walking Dead's awesome, and I'm really interested to see what's going to happen, because I had kind of mixed feelings about the last episode.
So obviously you've been playing them when they come out, and I'm gonna wait until they all come out, because I've said this before, but Netflix has ruined me like that, where I just want to binge. I want to binge play through the season. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've heard great things.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I did with the first season. I didn't buy it until quite a while after. I mean, I got it for like under $7 for the whole season, and the only reason I bought Season 2 so early was, for one, because I expected that they would be releasing the episodes a lot more quickly, like they did with the first season, but they didn't. But also because the fact that as of that point I hadn't bought any games for a few months, and it was on sale for the season pass. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and spend the money, get this season pass, and go for it. And same with Wolf Among Us, minus the not having bought any games. So yeah,
we'll get it tomorrow.
Absolutely, I'm downloading it as soon as I get a chance. All right, so that's all we have for news this week. We're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we will do our closing thoughts. All right. And even though it's kind of late at this point, and I guess it doesn't really matter since we're going to be done soon, you never put up your tag thing at the bottom.
It's okay. There is something wrong with my computer, and it's not allowing me to do that. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, like I said, at this point, it's kind of late anyway. So. All right. So let's go ahead and get back into this and close out.
Okay.
All right, and we're back. And so now we're going to do our closing thoughts, which, for those of you who haven't listened in a while or are unfamiliar with how we do things here, it's been adapted from what started out as weekly recommendations and then added on dissuasions, and then I adapted it further from the Geeks with Wives podcast, who do final thoughts. So it's basically the same thing as what you already do on Geeks with Wives. I always like to throw in there that you're welcome to do recommendations and dissuasions of anything at all, and obviously beyond that, just anything else you'd like to say. Obviously keep it clean, but I don't have to worry about that with you. So
yes, no F-bombs tonight. But
maybe
yes. Oh yeah, I'm saving them up. So. I recently, I said that I got an Xbox One, and I originally had a very, I looked upon the Xbox One not so much with disdain. That's a very strong way to characterize how I felt about it. But I was just very disappointed with the stance that Microsoft originally had with the Xbox One, but I say that, but I look back and I definitely appreciate what they wanted to do. And as I own an Xbox One, have a PS4, I just notice how similar they are now. Like when I play my Xbox One, like it really doesn't feel like a very different experience. Besides, like the dashboard that you initially pull up when you play it, like it definitely feels like the maybe not the twin of the PlayStation 4, but it just feels very similar. And so I guess my final thought is that I would like to see Microsoft just stick to their guns a little bit more when it comes to the Xbox. Like, sure, when they announced originally that it wasn't going to support used games, but you were going to be able to share games with your friends through Xbox Live, like that was a very different idea, and a lot of people didn't embrace that, and they eventually changed their policy on used games. But at the same time, I want to see Microsoft embrace what it is that they think that the Xbox One should be, and not so much what consumers think that it should be, because oftentimes consumers can be wrong. And I was talking to a friend of mine who just recently bought a Wii U, and he said, I didn't think that I wanted the things that the Wii U gives me, but I'm glad that Nintendo stuck with what they thought they wanted to do, because now they've provided me an experience that I didn't know that I wanted to have. And, I think that is something that Nintendo does very well, is they give you a need, or they point out a need that you didn't think you ever really had when it came to playing video games. And I would like to see Microsoft stick to that, because they obviously had those policies in for a reason. They thought that people would latch on to those policies for a reason, but then they backed off. And so I I definitely believe in the Xbox One. I think it's a great console, and I think it has a lot of potential. But it's only going to succeed as much as Microsoft, allows people to believe in what they believe. So I guess that's my final thought is I just want to see Microsoft stick to their guns a little bit more. And for people that maybe have had the opinion that I initially had, I would just say, give consoles time. We talk about the PlayStation 3 and how it started off poorly, but it eventually amassed a great success, and which led to the PlayStation 4 being so successful. And I would, tell people to just give Microsoft time. I think they're going to figure it out with the Xbox One. They recently doubled their sales from I think May to June, and so I just want to say, give it a shot, and Microsoft, give your policies a shot. Stick to your guns. So that's my rant. I felt like I said it pretty nicely, though. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I have a few things. First off, I'm just going to recommend a couple of things here. Hot links. Someone had mentioned having hot links on my Facebook or something, and I haven't had hot links in quite a while, but I decided to get some, and they were delicious. So I recommend that for anyone who's a fan of spicy food. And then I also want to recommend both Mythbusters and the UK version of Top Gear. If you've watched one and not the other, check out the other. If you've watched neither, you need to watch both. Mythbusters I think is a great place to start for anyone, but Top Gear is fantastic as well. It's just a different kind of show, at least from the standpoint of them talking a lot about cars. And you don't have to care about cars at all to enjoy it, because I know very little. I know how to do some basic maintenance on my minivan, and that's about the extent of where I'm at with cars. I've learned more about cars watching this show than I ever knew before, and I still watch the show just because it's hilarious. And then lastly, I just want to thank you, Jeff, for joining me on the podcast. It was great being on Geeks with Wives several weeks ago, or however long ago it was.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm really glad to have you on this time. It was a good time, nice to get in a good long conversation, especially considering how few podcasts Frozen Gamers have had over the past few months.
Yeah, I'm sorry it took so long, but you can't stop fate, and we were fated to do this podcast tonight. I'm glad it happened. I'm glad you had me on. Thank you.
And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Jeff, he is hosting Geeks with Wives podcast, which is an excellent podcast, definitely worth checking out every week. And you can follow him on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
@GentleJeffrey.
As well as you can check out Geeks with Wives podcast, which is just @GeeksWithWives.
Yeah.
So as always, if you'd like to subscribe to our podcast, you can do so by visiting the iTunes Music Store. You can follow us on twitter.com/FrozenGamers, like us on facebook.com/FrozenGamers, and check out our blog at FrozenGamersPodcast.wordpress.com, where we have detailed summaries for each episode, including what music is featured and artwork I put together each week. Now, something that's changing now is, or that I just failed to mention recently anyway, is that we do actually have every single episode of the show on our WordPress site. Unfortunately, because of the way the hosting site for the podcast, where it gets transferred to, or where it shows up on iTunes through the RSS feed, because of the way that's set up, unfortunately, I can only store about 5 episodes at a time without paying insane amounts of money. But WordPress, I have every single episode on there so far, and although for some stupid reason it's taken me a while to figure it out, there's going to be download links for all of the episodes. Probably by the time you hear this podcast, they should all be raring and ready to go. But yeah, if you're a new listener and you want to go back and hear the old episodes, going back to last April, just check out that site, frozengamerspodcast.wordpress.com. And now I lost my spot. Be sure to write us in with questions, whether gaming related or not, and comments on anything you've heard through the aforementioned sources or through our email address, which is frozengamerspodcast@gmail.com. For myself, my guest, Jeff Gordon, and my absent co-hosts, John Flam, Scotty Yar, and Ben Greason, we are the Frozen Gamers, and we will be back with you next time.